Housing is such an essential part of care for a person with special needs, especially here in the Bay Area. My clients often ask me, they're so worried about housing options for their kids, and they ask me about different options that might be out there. So I started doing research on the different facilities that are available. One thing I found is that the regional center does provide housing for those with developmental disabilities, but a lot of times it's not the best fit for the child. Or you might have a child who doesn't have developmental disabilities, but maybe mental health challenges or other challenges that are not covered under the regional center. And families are always looking for the very best option for their child. This video contains interviews with three amazing women. We have Kris McCann from Bay Area Housing Corporation, Leslie Nordin from Big Wave Project, and Susan Houghton from Sunflower Hill. Each of these women approached housing from a different perspective, and they got the entire community involved to create amazing housing projects for their kids. I hope these interviews inspire you to start working on housing now for your child. There's never a better time than the present. So Kris, why don't you tell us about how did this legacy program start? What is it and why? How does this really serve the disability community?
Well, Ellen, as you know, probably the biggest concern that families have is what's going to happen to me when I'm gone. And I'm also a mom. I have a daughter that is 44, has cerebral palsy, and that's my biggest worry is what's going to happen when I am gone and where is she going to live? What is she going to do? All of those good kind of things. So family members that I know, that's the biggest concern. So for the past 25 years, Ellen, I've been involved in the housing world, starting a couple nonprofits, and Bay Area Housing Corp is the organization that I currently run. And it amazes me of how many people are looking for a solution in housing. They may have support from the regional center, but housing is not a part of that support. So you need to find housing, and most family members don't have a clue and of what to do and how to do it. And we stumbled on this program it was called WISH a long time ago that was in Wisconsin. And for the last 25 years, we've been trying to fine tune it of how to bring it to California and make it work here. So that's sort of the why. And did you know also that there's 250,000 adults in the Bay Area that have IDD? And they typically earn less than 30% of the average median income for this Bay Area. We know how expensive this Bay Area is.
That's right.
And approximately 80% of them live with their family in their family's homes. So many people were thinking, well, what can I do with my family home to have something that could be for my son or for my daughter? Thus, the concept of legacy. And this is what I totally love. So we have spent the last year really tuning this in. We brought in the Harvard Business Group to really help us think this through with forms, with legalese, all of those good kind of things. And actually hired a program designer from that Harvard group to work with us this last year as well. So we are ready to go. We've already got individuals that are interested in working with us, and I'd be glad to tell you a little bit more, but the biggest reason of the why is people need a plan, and it's never too early to start thinking about that plan. We're sort of like an insurance policy. Hopefully you won't need to be able to use it for a very long time, but you know the peace of mind. If something happens to me, there is a plan for my child when it comes to their housing. And we are the housing and the property management side of it, bringing in the services. So that's the why. That's a little bit about the why.
It's so true, Kris, because so many of my clients come in and, they've been working so hard on getting the IUPs and getting the therapies and everything. And then their kid is approaching adulthood and they're like, well, do we need a conservatorship or supported decision-making? What are we going to do? And then I say, well, what about housing?
Yeah.
And it's like a deer in the headlights, but it's keeping families up at night, right? Because just as you said, it's almost impossible to buy a house here if you're
Right.
just a regular functioning adult, what if if you're disabled and you don't have an income stream, right? So I'm
Absolutely.
so glad that you're doing this.
And you really spend a lot of time helping families understand their special needs trusts, all of those good kind of things. But where does that property reside? Where does that go? And how are you sure that your wishes are going to be carried out? So that's where I'm very proud of the organization that I'm currently the director of, Bay Area Housing Corp. We own 51 homes, and we in the Bay Area, for people with intellectual developmental disabilities. But most of these, all of these, are homes that are contracted with the regional center. So that's very different. You as a family are not going to be able to get into these homes unless there's a referral from the regional center. So we thought, well, we're really good at ownership and property management and all of those good kind of things. So we thought, what could we do as a service to help families in the Bay Area? And that's legacy, because you would be able to transfer your home to BAHC to enable adaptive housing, and property management and maintenance is on us. And we also help to make sure that there's coordinated services for that family member with IDD. And the primary resident is that family member with IDD. So everything is going to gear around that family member. And then if needed, we'll bring in roommates to help support some of the costs of it, because it's expensive to run a home. And sometimes families want, and loved ones want, other people to live in that home with them as well. And if it's okay, Ellen, let me give you just sort of an idea of one individual, one family that has decided to do it. And I'll just give you a snapshot of them.
Yeah.
They live in the Fremont area. They have a large 5-bedroom home. Their son is roughly in his 20s. The parents are in their 50s and 60s, and they hope they won't need to make this transfer to BAHC for a very long period of time. But they are going to bed knowing that there's a plan in place that if something happens, that transfer of their property through their estate planning would be coming to BAHC. They also have identified a service provider that would be providing the services within the home. So we would be coordinating with them. So we are receiving the home, but it's basically in honor of this family's wishes. We keep everything very segmented, where any of the dollars that go into this home go just into this home. It's not going into any other home. So we are the responsible party for this, and there is a benefit because of property taxes. If it's going to a nonprofit, the home is not different taxation rate. Let's just put it that way. So, but more importantly, we have the caring and the understanding of what it takes to own a home and to do the property management on behalf of this family. So, it is working extremely well. We're putting the documents in place, and hopefully it will be many, many years until that transfer would ever occur. But this family can rest easy at night knowing that their loved one is taken care of.
So this sounds amazing. It's kind of like having your cake and eating it too, right? So you have this son who gets to stay in the family home.
Right.
And I feel like that is a big wish of most of my clients, because
Right.
kids are already very familiar with the home. But you're bringing in outside support, maybe the regional center support that's already there. You're
Correct.
bringing in other
Roommates if
kids,
needed.
roommates,
Yep.
right, so to build friendships, and also to provide an income stream to
Correct.
support the house. And then it's
Correct.
only when the child dies, that's when BAHC, Bay Area Housing Corporation, takes it over. And then do you guys use it for another supported housing situation?
Absolutely. And that's the other thing to know too, is that you are making a difference in somebody else's life too. So this will be literally a home that will stay serving people with IDD. But let me clarify also, it would be as soon as the family members die, like the parents would pass away, that it would be coming over to BAHC. So we would actually, it would be transferred at that point in time, not when the person with the IDD living in the home coming to BAHC. It would already be transferred over to us prior to that individual moving into the home. So
Gotcha.
just to make
and then
that
the individual really has a right of occupancy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing we need to figure out is how much is it going to cost to keep this home operating? So we do a reserve analysis. We come in and do a reserve analysis on your appliances, on your roof. How much is it going to take to keep this house going? And that's one of the services that we come in with our expertise to be able to do. So we want to know, bottom line, how much rent needs to be coming in, how much money that needs to be in reserves to keep this house going for this loved one. So I think it is a win-win situation. And we have had very many people very excited about it. And back to this family in Fremont, one of the most important things too is that this family there were two other siblings beside the one individual with IDD, to have that conversation as a family, that this would be the wish of this family to do. So it'd be very clear from the beginning that this is going on and there's no surprises in the end. And I think that's really important. So the legalese are there, but most importantly, the intent is there. And then we will do a yearly check-in with this family to make sure that it's still working for the family. If it isn't, done. We're not doing anything. Nothing is transferred, nothing like that, except for time and energy and hopefully some peace of mind. So I love the flexibility, and I'm looking at this as a parent. What would I want to do for my own child, for my peace of mind, and knowing that she was able to have a place to live, and then when she was no longer alive, it would go on to somebody else and it would be passed along. So I think it's the best of both worlds. So I just give you, I'm thrilled about this, and people can go to our website. It would be BAHC, the number one.org, and then just go to the tab that says programs, go to legacy, and say more information. And we have an entire intake form where you just put in your name, information, and we will get right back to you. So we hope to hear from lots of people.
Why did you guys start Big Wave? What is this all about?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Ellen. So a group of parents started Big Wave in the Half Moon Bay area a long time ago. They were all sitting down watching their kids play on a Special Olympics basketball team. And they would gather every weekend and sit in the stands and watch their practice, and started talking. And they all realized that they had the same exact fear. And that fear was, what is going to happen to our kids when we're gone, when we're no longer here? The other thing that they noticed when they watched the Special Olympics team practicing, they realized how it was really such a benefit that all the members of the team had varying levels of ability, varying levels of independence, and how much it benefited everyone when the team members could help others participate. And those who were providing help gained just as much benefit from those who they were providing help to. And so they came up with this idea of building a community where their kids could live when they became adults and could be rooted in a community that was not based on their parents' lives, but rather lives of their own and a community of their own. So that was started a long time ago. That was 20 years ago.
Wow.
But if you fast forward, all of the hard work and the perseverance that this small group of original families did to gain the permitting necessary and jump through all the hoops of county approvals and building permits and California Coastal Commission approvals, we are now here on the verge of seeing this dream become a reality.
That's amazing. And one thing I want to emphasize, which you shared just for all of our parents who are watching, is that this is a plan ahead sort of thing. You're not going to just find housing tomorrow. While your kid is living with you, or even while your kid is younger, now's the time to start planning. So that's what you guys did, and my hat's off to you.
I think that's a really good point. Our son is 19. His name is Sawyer, and we've been looking and searching for the right place for Sawyer since he's 14, knowing that this was on the horizon. And as he's grown, we know that, as so many parents of kids with special needs know, you can't predict everything and you can plan very little. But you do have to put a stake in the ground, figuratively and literally, when planning for a future for your child and what you hope for him or her in terms of a sense of community and a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose that you cannot, at one point, you will not be able to provide them, whether it's through your age or their age. We're seeing that with Sawyer now as he's 19. He's grown and he's changed, and he thrives when he's in a community of peers and people of his own age. And just like our daughter does, who's
Don't we all?
around the same. Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. So what does Big Wave, what does the complex look like? How many units are there? Tell me about that.
Sure. So I want to be clear, we don't have a building yet, but we have a whole lot. We're right on the verge of going vertical. The property sits on 6.9 acres in Half Moon Bay. We have completed all of the infrastructure in the ground, water, sewer, utilities, a certified construction pad upon which the building will be built. When it is built, it will be a 50,000 square foot, 2-story building with a 10,000 square foot courtyard in a horseshoe shape. And it will contain 36 apartments of various sizes, studios, 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms, as well as a variety of common areas that are going to encourage social interaction among residents that happen organically and also in a planned way as well. We'll have a lobby, a central dining area. Like I said, the courtyard, we have space for people to have quiet time, but still be around others. We're planning on having some sort of workout space, but like I said, a variety of common areas that we can hold enrichment programs like that will encourage that social integration that's so important in everyone's life, but that this population finds it harder to find on their own.
That's right. So tell me a bit about the population. So who is this really intended for? What types of special needs might be appropriate? What might not?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And it's one of the hallmarks of Big Wave is that we're not looking for any particular diagnosis. We're not screening people based on their diagnosis or their level of independence. Rather, we really ascribe to that same philosophy that the parents watching their Special Olympics basketball team did, that a community with diversity and people with different levels of independence really benefit from one another. The one common thread among the population is that there's a desire to be part of something that is a social community, that it's a desire to be around people. It doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be around people all the time. Hence the opportunity to have your own private space in your own private apartment, but a desire to want to contribute to something bigger than yourself. And that might not be for my son. He's not cognizant of that necessarily, that he wants to be the concept of being a part of something bigger than him. But we see how he thrives when he has that social interaction. So really, when we're looking at families who are interested in coming to Big Wave, it's more of a philosophy and whether we share the same values and goals for our adult children in creating a community that is integrated with the larger community outside and also creating a very family atmosphere within Big Wave and all pitching in and contributing to this, the families as well as the residents.
Right. And it would probably make more sense for people who might be in the Bay Area. I mean, Half Moon Bay is so lovely. I don't know if you can find a more beautiful location, but
yeah.
right. But are you finding people coming from other areas of the US? How are people finding you?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're asking the right person because we were the first family outside of California to join Big Wave. We're currently located in Boston, Massachusetts. I know. I'm counting the days until we move out there. For personal reasons, our daughter is finishing high school here. We are waiting to move out there, but we were looking out in California and warmer climates for Sawyer because he tends to thrive in places where he has more activities that he can do year round outside. But we have found people, we have a lot of families who are from Northern California, but currently right now we're speaking to 2 applicant families, one from Utah and one from Colorado. And then we had another family visit just the other day from Maryland. And it really is, we're finding through mutual friends, through word of mouth, and we're also gaining a significant amount of press recently because we've hit such major milestones with our community. We did recently sign a contract with a Northern California builder to build the property, and we did secure financing. And that all happened this summer. So as the word has gotten out and our amazing progress has taken hold in the press, we seem to be hearing from people far and wide.
I love it. And hopefully this video can pique a few people's interest.
We would love it. We would love it.
Yeah.
We do have available spaces. The interest is extremely high, but we, like I said, go through a process of just making sure it's a right fit for the family and for the community. I should mention, because I did mention residents with different levels of ability, it is a supported housing model. So Big Wave Group itself will own the building and run the community aspect in terms of that feeling of cohesiveness, the running of enrichment programs, all of which will be based on choice and not required. But the one-to-one support that a resident may require is not provided specifically by Big Wave. That's a separate arrangement that each resident will have with either the regional center or a privately retained aide. And we do have residents who vary from a few of them needing 24/7 one-to-one aides and others who might just need a check-in in the morning and will be living completely independently with just a check-in in the morning and a check-in at night, just to make sure everything's okay. So, but I did want to mention that model.
Oh, that's excellent. That's great. So if somebody were interested in this, how would they reach out? You said there's some families flying in. Like, what would be the first step? How would they reach you?
So the first step would be to go on our website, and there's a form if you're interested in residency. That's just called a statement of interest that you fill out. And it goes directly actually to me as I head up our membership efforts for the parent group. And it goes directly to me. And then we reach out automatically upon receiving that. And we provide a very comprehensive document that answers many, many frequently asked questions. And if after that, those questions, people are still interested in moving forward with an application and there's no commitment in putting in an application, it just starts a dialogue. I provide the application with them and we start talking and I can walk them through the application process. But it is really a matter of getting to know you and you getting to know us, because we're all parents and we realize how complex and how multi-layered this process can be. And it has to feel right for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And we're all advocates for our kids. We want the very best for our kids.
Exactly.
And it sounds like that's really what you're providing. So I want to congratulate you. I mean, this is amazing what you guys have put together when there's such a dearth of housing opportunities, especially in the Bay Area. So many of my clients worry about this. And I think it's so awesome that some parents have taken matters into their own hands and are developing something that's not just basic, but I mean, it's beautiful. It sounds
I really
beautiful.
appreciate that. I really appreciate that. We see this more and more with parents building these communities for their kids because it's the parents who truly know what their adult children will need and need now. I also want to mention that we're not just serving the people who will be residents in Big Wave. We also have adjacent to the Big Wave residential building is the Big Wave Farm that hosts members from several different day programs every 4 days a week. And we do some farming programs with them and some educational programs and social programs with them. And we also, on the first floor of our building, are going to be renting out to a day program called One Step Beyond, a space where they will be operating their day program out of there. And they will also be operating a culinary academy out of the commercial kitchen on our first floor. And
where I bet you'll be using some delicious produce that was grown on the farm, right? It all comes together.
It all comes together. And the participants in the Culinary Academy will reach well beyond our residents at Big Wave. They currently operate a similar academy in Phoenix, and they serve many, many individuals with disabilities who are interested in learning kitchen skills and even food service skills that they can use in potential volunteer and job opportunities.
Wow. Oh, just incredible.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
No, I mean, it's just amazing, So Leslie, congratulations. And thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope this gives parents really a vision and an idea for what is possible for their children with disabilities to have amazing housing and social interaction and all of those incredible programs. So thank you, Leslie.
Thank you for having me.
So Susan, I know you're part of a wonderful group that really did a lot of investigating, and I'd love to kind of hear just also your background, what got you interested in this field, and hear your journey with Sunflower Hill and just in general.
Sure. Well, thank you. And a lot to talk about. We could probably spend several hours. So I'll just kind of give you the executive version and feel free to follow up, with anything that sounds interesting or resonates. You're totally correct. John Elfin's son, Jake, is one of 30 residents at Sunflower Hill at Irby Ranch. And this is a kind of an inclusive community for individuals with special needs in Pleasanton, California. My son, Robbie, is also a resident there. And we feel very fortunate that our sons are part of those individuals who are selected to live there. We started the journey for Sunflower Hill 10 years ago, actually, wow. And it was a group of parents who were asking the very same questions that you're posing today. What's going to happen to my child when I die? Where will he live? Can he afford to live? Or I can't even have him live or her live with me anymore because I'm getting too elderly. We have to all think about that to a certain extent. And, at the time that happened, this was, 2012, more than 80% of individuals with special needs lived with their parents long-term. And the options were not great. On one end of the spectrum, you had the group homes or the institutional living, and that's when Agnew and Sonoma hospitals were still active and open. And, a lot has changed in those 10 years. And group homes were more prevalent than they were now, actually. And, you had that option. You had the option of on the other end of the spectrum, and that was, full-blown living in your apartment and being able to maybe get an affordable housing unit or maybe living in an ADU of your parents or something along those lines. And for, those individuals who might be in the middle, neither were really great choices. Mm-hmm. So we came up with this idea early on, the parents, of, something akin to senior living, where we wanted the benefits of a safe and secure environment, but the freedom to live in your own apartment and to be able to do what you want to do. And if you can cook on your own, cook on your own. But if you can't, and you need some help, you can also get help. Mm-hmm. And so that's how Sunflower Hill really started. It started with a dream, as many families dream. Mm-hmm. And we proceeded, and no one told us we couldn't do it. So we just kept plodding along. And along the way, we developed a beautiful garden at Hageman Ranch. And John's wife, Lynn Monica, was actually one of the visionaries behind that. And that is a space, really. Sunflower Hill likes to say places and spaces. So that's a space right now that individuals with special needs can go and work and thrive in a garden environment. Mm. So we are looking at Irby Ranch as the first of several inclusive communities that we want to develop. We have plans underway in Lafayette, California as well. And we think the model needs to be replicated, and we're happy to help parents and other organizations kind of think through that process of what to do for their own loved ones and individuals.
Well, I love what you said, Susan, about it kind of being modeled after senior living, because we've done a lot, well, not me, but, society, we've done a lot of work on how do we best support our seniors.
Right.
And there's a lot of similarities between the senior community and special needs community. In fact, even in the legal field, special needs planning is often linked to elder planning, right? So because we have issues of partial capacity, of being able to do some things but not other things, and wanting people to be as independent as possible while recognizing the need to protect them and to provide a safe space, as you said, to go and grow. I
would agree. And most of the individuals at Sunflower Hill at Irby Ranch are probably partially conserved. My son is partially conserved. And, he can get up in the morning and make waffles and make his bed and do that daily routine. But if somebody knocked on his door and said, gosh, give me your wallet or give me all your money, he'd hand you his wallet and want to make sure you were happy about it afterwards. So unfortunately, many of our kids don't understand the full dangers that can exist in society. And so I think the model at Sunflower Hill, it's you have to have a key to get in. You cannot just walk in. They all know each other. Caregivers are around to kind of support. And Sunflower Hill as an organization has really created some fun activities, that exist every day on site, so that you can walk down and work out in the gym or take a crafting class or, be able to go watch a movie with your friends. And you think, especially in COVID, for many of our kids, it was a very isolating experience. And the goal is to be able to have shared commonality and shared community in a positive manner, but still have the freedom to be independent and non-social if that's not what you want to do. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
Oh, that's so fabulous. So can I ask you, financially, how did this come together? Where did you get the funds for this?
Sure. So, we started off doing some research early on, looking at other models in California. And at the time, Sweetwater Spectrum up in Sonoma was considered kind of the Taj Mahal of where to live, and an incredible group of parents who just said, we're going to do this. If not us, then who, whatever, kind of doing that. And that actually, Margaret Mead quote really became our mantra, never doubt what a small group of committed citizens and thoughtful citizens can do to change the world. It's the only thing that it ever has. And so we said, okay, we can do this, but we knew that for Sweetwater Spectrum, the opening cost to reserve a slot for your child was $1 million. And maybe by Northern California, standards now, that didn't seem like a lot, but we were blown away, and none of us had $1 million, even though the priority of our child was really important. So we started looking into affordable housing partnerships. And I'll be honest with you, when we started, I knew nothing about affordable housing, but we were lucky enough in Pleasanton to find a developer who was interested in building a subdivision in Pleasanton, who had to check that box on their affordable housing component. All developers, you can pay into a fund, you can do a set aside some other place, or you can actually build affordable housing. And remember, this was back in the late 2010s. And so, affordable housing wasn't as a high priority as it is in the last couple of years. So it was a very novel concept to actually deed, almost 2 acres to a nonprofit organization, us, and say these units, these 30 units will check the box on our affordable housing requirement. And that's exactly what Mike Serpa did in Pleasanton, a developer, and he developed the Irby Ranch complex and set aside 2 acres for us. And we went through the typical planning process with the city of Pleasanton and the city council, and they were so supportive. Pleasanton, we feel very fortunate, is a community of character. That's their brand, and they really live it. So they said, come in. Yes, we want to embrace developmentally disabled individuals in this community and specifically in the subdivision. So going through that affordable housing process and partnering with an affordable housing developer, Satellite Affordable Housing, which we did, meant that we could apply for state tax credits. It also meant that we could get county bond money. So we ended up getting about $7 million from the Alameda County as part of their A1 bond funding. We got money from the city of Pleasanton. We also got money from the state, in which we became on this tax credit project, the #1 special needs set aside project in the state during that cycle. So we were very fortunate. Sunflower Hill at Irby Ranch was completely publicly developed with public funds. It is really an affordable housing community similar to many other affordable housing communities. It's just got criteria that you have to have developmentally delayed individuals living in there, and a preference for those individuals who belong to a regional center clients. And specifically in our case, a preference for individuals who live in the Tri-Valley, Livermore, Pleasanton, or Dublin. And so that kind of narrowed the criteria. But my son, John's son, all had to go through a very competitive process in order to be in. We filed an application, and it was a lottery system. So there was a good chance that our sons would not be selected.
Oh my goodness. After really putting all this work into it. Well, I'm glad you get to benefit. Oh, wow.
We knew that. All of our board knew that. And, we did it because it was the right thing to do. And you've got to, hope for divine intervention as part of that. And we were actually, my son was one of the very last ones to be selected. So I was, crossing my fingers and as part of it, but luckily we were. And, what's hard is that there are so many on the waiting list who were not. And that's really, the need. I think right now, affordable housing is hot. People are worried about homeless. And rightly so. We have to make sure, though, that our kids, our population, are not forgotten in that discussion. And I think it's really easy to do that because they can't advocate for themselves. And as parents, we all know the journey that we've been on can get tiring at times, right? You don't want everything to have to be a struggle. You just want to hit that easy button and kind of go, okay, you know what? It's working. So that is kind of the journey. Now, in terms of costs, Irby Ranch, Sunflower Hill is between 20 and 60% AMI. So that means that you can have 20 to 60% of the average median income, affordable median income to house. In my case, my son's rent is $1,099 a month, which is unheard of in the Bay Area.
Yes.
Social Security, his check is $1,000 a month. So we're moving that Social Security check right over to pay for his rent. And, one thing that's great about, affordable housing is your rent increases are few and far between, hopefully. And so he can live at Sunflower Hill Ranch for the rest of his life. And we feel very fortunate about that.
Oh, I bet that helps you sleep at night.
It does.
Knowing that there's a place, and you can go and visit him as much as you want, I'd assume, right?
I can go daily if I want to, but part of the goal is to really have him live his life.
That's
and, I think it's hard for many parents, like, what is that happy medium? You let them make mistakes. For many of the kids, and they're not kids, they're adults, obviously, at Sunflower Hill.
But they'll always be kids to us.
They are always our kids. And I think navigating their own social networks and learning how to deal with their own problems. You get locked out of your apartment. What do you do? So it's a journey for them as part of that. And that's why the support staff, that we are fortunate that we have many supportive living services agencies that help the clients at Sunflower Hill at Irby Ranch. We have great staff there, and it's got to work together as a community, a collaborative, collective group of individuals who put that same person-centered planning for our kids front and center.
Wow. Well, I have to say, Susan, it really sounds like you guys cracked the code. This is amazing that you figured out a way, first of all, to utilize, and at that time it wasn't such a hot topic, right? But to utilize the affordable housing method, which is what we really need for our kids, and then bring all of these resources together. I'm sure there were a lot of people, writing grant applications. Those are not easy, right? So how many families were working on this at the same time? I'm trying to get an idea of what this takes.
Well, I think, early on, especially when we started the garden, we really created a vision of join us and together we can do this. So we had hundreds of families behind us. Not all of them were ready to have their children move into Sunflower Hill or to get on that waiting list. But more importantly, we had community leaders, we had elected officials, we had people who did not have an individual special needs in their family believing in the vision. And I think that's what propelled us, is that that we said, we had people go, oh my gosh. And, yes, if I can do one thing to help an individual with special needs, whether they live at Sunflower Hill or whether they're working at the garden or whether or not they're doing something as part of our program participants. We have things like popcorn chats online and other programs and services that you don't have to live at Irby Ranch to participate in. So the goal was just to really broaden the world of many individuals with special needs. But I want to make sure that I give a shout out to many other sister communities in California, because there are many other ones that didn't follow the affordable housing model, but did like limited liability corporations where families came in, or did different kinds of mechanisms in order to get a community built. Sunflower Hill at Irby Ranch ended up costing about $22 million. And that's not small chump change as part of that. But there are families who've also been able to recreate opportunities similar to Sweetwater Spectrum for less than $1 million that deserve a shout out. I think it's important for families, if they're living in an area where all of our kids go to school together, they're in Special Olympics together, these people, your kids grow up with them, to start that discussion locally and to say, what model do we want? And start by exploring. I mean, we did a lot of research. We visited a lot of different places. What's right for us in our community? Do we want to just create something small for 10 individuals? Well, you can go buy a duplex for that if that's something you want to do, right? What is important in that discussion? And we went back and forth on that with many of our families. And, how we ended up with Irby Ranch is that we wanted it for the kids who were kind of in the middle, who couldn't fully live on that apartment just down the street on their own, but certainly were above a group home situation, or at that time, Agnew and Sonoma. And I think as Sunflower Hill evolves, those kinds of discussions will change. So the Lafayette property might be, higher functioning individuals or more independent individuals. There might be opportunities to do something else. But I think it's important that families look at their individual needs of banding together and make a commitment to do it. No one told us we couldn't do it. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm sure I answered some very stupid questions about affordable housing early on. And, people were looking at me and I'd be like, okay, well, I've got to research that then, or I've got to hire an expert to help me on that then, because I didn't know the answer. But I was determined to make it work, because what was the alternative? The alternative is status quo,
which is not sufficient,
right?
For sure. Yeah. Well, and I think it's so valuable what you're sharing about really finding the model that works for you. I mean, one of my goals with doing these videos is providing different opportunities that people can watch. Before COVID, I had this vision of having like a big event and bringing everybody together, and we can have different speakers and stuff. And now it's kind of like, I don't really want to do a big event anymore, but I feel like, if we can look and even for 5 minutes kind of see, all right, this is how Sunflower Hill developed. Do we have those types of resources or that type of community where people can really rally behind? Do we have the connections to the community leaders and start, putting a bug in their ear, right? I live in East Palo Alto, so affordable housing is a huge issue here, right? And we're talking about it all the time. And I think developing that for those with developmental disabilities would be so phenomenal. My son is 9 now, right? And he has high functioning autism. I think something like this would be terrific for him. He might be able to be on his own in an apartment, but we don't know yet. And it's always a growing and changing field.
It is. And I think, as you look at how the world is addressing affordable housing in particular, I always thought it'd be good to buy up old motels, because that old motel of that Route 66 motel, that might be a way to change something in, or old schools. I mean, we looked at a nunnery early on. I mean, we were looking at everything, old camps that could be converted. And I think you've got to have those out of the box kind of discussions, but start with a core group of families. families and say, we're in it. Our kids are, in it for the long haul. And it can't be just about us, because you won't resonate with your government leaders and your elected officials if it's just, I need a place for my own child, right? It's got to be, how do you evolve an opportunity? And maybe not everyone has an opportunity for housing, but they have an opportunity to go to the garden, or they have an opportunity to participate in programs, or they have an opportunity, to be a part of a bigger whole social organization that is really advancing the needs of those individuals. So I think there's lots of ways to go. For me, I have 2 other sons, but I did not want my sons to be burdened with where Robbie lives after I pass away. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to be there for them on all the holidays and the social aspects, but it can be draining, as we all know, to be there, when your child has gone to Holland and you thought you were going to Italy, as K.A., that famous poem, that going to Holland.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, and I have this conversation regularly with my clients, because they figure, oh, well, Susie, Joey's sister, well, she'll just take care of him. It's like, but you want Susie to be living her highest and best life too, right? Your sons, you want them to be able to go and live where they want to live and raise the family they want to raise. And we know, as special needs parents, it's a full-time job. So we wouldn't want to impose that, on one of our kids. Now there's other ways to keep them involved with the holidays, with the supervision and stuff. But no, it's really, really true.
SLS services, I think, are so important to the success of Sunflower Hill, and we are very grateful. And those are going individually planned. So you're residing at Sunflower Hill, you're partaking in the activities that our organization gives, but you also have your own, person-centered plan that allows you to have individual caregivers supporting your services.
And how does that start? Is that through the regional center? Where do you get this? Okay.
So, if you are a regional center client, it starts with a conversation with your case manager. And before you move out on your own, you can actually begin with independent living services. How do you grocery shop? How do you cook? How do you make your bed? And they can find agencies that will provide individuals to help you learn those skills. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get. Some families have to wait a very long time because, like with everything in the Bay Area, we have worker shortage as part of that. But I would encourage people to start with their case manager, and when they're doing your IPP planning, vision what that looks like and start setting the motion in place so that when they do reach 18 or 22 or 25, you've been talking for 5 years, 10 years on how important this vision is and how Regional Center can help you execute it. I think it's important to try to find your own activities that can be supplemented. Special Olympics is a great opportunity to be able to do that. And I know that regional centers, at least Regional Center of the East Bay, where we are a member, they're really pushing those inclusive activities. So opportunities for those with DD to integrate into typical environments. So finding those as much as you can is important.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. My kids go to Hope Technology School, which is fully inclusive. So
yes,
so we love that model. And our typical son, who's younger, he's learning how to be more patient and empathetic, and doesn't come naturally. He's doing awesome.
Yeah, some days it's okay, and then other days it's not, and you just kind of roll with it. And but for us, some days it's okay, and some days it's
not. Oh yeah. Some days I'm patient, and some days
right. I'm like, okay, really, we're going to do this again, but you do, because that's what you do, and it's a journey, as we all know.
Yeah, that's so true. Wow. Well, Susan, you've provided such amazing information and materials and just ideas of where to get started. I feel like so many of us are on the beginning steps of this journey, and it's so inspiring to see it, even if it took 10 years, what that path might look like and how to carry that out, because I think it's worth it to work for several years to really get something in place that can work for your child for the rest of their life.
Thank you.
Regardless of how long you'll be around. Yeah.
We feel very fortunate. There was an incredible group of committed families early on, supplemented by great staff, advisors, elected officials, community leaders, all who said, yes, we believe in you. We believe in this vision. And, we have a great new executive director leading Sunflower Hill right now. And, we're happy to help pay it forward, because we benefited from people helping us, and we want to be able to pay it forward.
Well, that's wonderful. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to reach out once they see this and really see, how can they either model something after this or take the things that might work for your community and then supplement them with what works for their community.
Absolutely. And it starts by going to our website, sunflowerhill.org, and you can read all about us and a little bit about our history. We also have YouTube channels and that are videos with parents early on that might be inspiring and helpful. And then contact our staff and our executive director, Jen Leonard Benson. She's happy to help as well. So happy to do anything we can to pay it forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, Susan.
Thank you for asking me, and good luck to the families. It's one step at a time. It can be overwhelming, but you know what? You can do it.
Hello, everyone. If you liked my mom's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you all next time.